Hello everyone and welcome back to the Arsenal Ramble, brought to you as ever by myself Dom and my co-rambler Dave. Now, in today's episode we're going to be discussing Arsenal's massive 3-2 win over Manchester United tonight at the Emirates Stadium and what that now means for us going into the second half of the season. But before we get started, I just want to express a moment of condolence for Man United's title charge, which lasted from the 14th to the 22nd of January. Dave, how are you doing, mate?
Honestly, absolutely buzzing. I remember like a couple of weeks ago we were talking about what sort of points tally was we expecting after the North London derby and this United game, and we were sort of being optimistically cautious with the 4 points, and we'd have took that to a few weeks ago. But to say we've come through another test, I know people keep moving the goalposts, but we've come through another test and we've managed to get 3 points again, 6 points in total from the two games. So honestly, I'm absolutely buzzing, and we'll get into the game shortly, but the way it ended as well, delicious.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely
unbelievable.
delicious.
And as you're saying, another moving the goalposts. My friend Chris, that I mentioned on the last podcast, where I message him after every single game saying, "Are you starting to believe that Arsenal could win the title?" I asked him last week after we beat Spurs, and he said, "Look, ask me after we beat United next week. I mean, if we beat United next week, ask me then, and I'll tell you yes." So we beat United. First thing I did was message Chris. Chris, are you starting to believe? And he goes, well, if we beat City in one of the two games, then I'll start to believe. And I said, what the hell, man? It's just moving the goalposts all the time. But yeah, it's great to be at 50 points at the halfway point of the season. So it's just I think we're ready to really go for a title charge now.
Yeah, to think, we're at the bang on halfway point now. 50 points. That is the best Arsenal have ever done in the Premier League to this point. It's not even, it's record breaking, and it's not even just lucky or the fact that certain things are going our way. We are very deserving of that. It's just crazy.
And we're on course for breaking 100 points this season, which is absolutely crazy. I don't think we're going to do it, but I mean, it's mad to think that we could potentially be in the 90s, mid-90s by the end of the season, and you would think that could be enough for us to actually win the title. So it's time for us to get excited. I think so.
That's got to be answered. Should we get into the game then?
Yeah, so I think we should start with the team sheets. It's pretty much like a carbon copy of every game that we play at the minute. It's the same team sheet. So there wasn't any changes really. The only difference was on the subs bench. We've got a bit more of a bulky subs bench now. We saw the likes of Trossard, our new signing, on there. And then we've got attacking threat with Emile Smith-Rowe and Fabio Vieira. So it's compared to the Newcastle game, where I was looking at the subs bench thinking there's nowhere that we would be able to change this game if it did start to, run away from us. I was feeling a lot happier about that. Yeah,
I mean, the team just speaks for itself now, doesn't it? There's no surprises with that starting 11. And yeah, like you said, it was an absolute massive boost to have someone of Trossard's ability. It was a bit touch and go, wasn't it, whether we got him registered in time? They've obviously kept the cards close to their chest with whether they did or didn't, just for that element of surprise for United. I guess it gives us that little edge potentially, but yeah, really glad we've got Trossard now to bring on in games and hopefully even start a few, especially in the Europa League games and the FA Cup game coming up this Friday. So yeah, it's a massive boost. I'm so glad we've got him.
Yeah, I completely agree, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we'll talk about his impact that he made in the game. But so, unfortunately, the elephant in the room, we ended up going behind early on in the game, which is something that we're not quite used to, really, is it?
No.
The game didn't really start with too much. There wasn't too much energy from either side at the start of the game, but unfortunately, Thomas Partey had a pass that was cut out by Rashford, who then ended up, to be fair, beating him quite well. He did a little bit of skill and went past him. and then just brought it out and opened his body up, and it was an absolute thunderbolt of a strike to beat Aaron Ramsdale. And on reflection, I do feel like Aaron Ramsdale tends to struggle with the long-range shots. I don't know if maybe he's off-sighted by Saliba. I think he might have been in his way a little bit, but I think you've just got to give credit to Rashford. We're scoring from that distance. It was a bit sloppy from us because I think Saka initially got caught on the ball and then Partey's pass got cut out. But yeah, I don't think we did too much wrong there. I think we got caught on the ball and they punished us.
Yeah, I was going to say it was against the run of play, but I think that would probably be not quite true because the game, they were having phases of play that were threatening for us at times. And yeah, there wasn't just sloppiness at the back. There was sloppiness going forward as well. I noticed a few times Martinelli was giving the ball in dangerous positions and bits and bobs like that. So it was frustrating, really. It really was impacting our ability to take a foothold in the game. And we're so used to that, aren't we? Especially at home. We're used to really starting strong and getting those early goals. And to go behind, I think this is probably the earliest we've gone behind in a game all season. So it was interesting to see how they reacted. And obviously we'll come on to that in a minute. But I think they reacted really well. You know, it was a frustrating phase of the game where we just weren't able to assert our dominance and to concede to such a sloppy error. It's just frustrating, but there's no way Ramsdale's saving that, in my opinion. It would have, I think he's maybe unsighted to Saliba slightly, but if you watch the angles as well, it's bending out and coming back in as well. I mean, there's not many keepers that would save that, I don't think.
No, I tend to agree. Actually, it was a great strike, and as you said, it bent from outside the post to just nick inside the post. So, yeah, it was a real venomous strike. But what was great for me was the fact that I don't feel nervous anymore when we go 1-0 behind against the top six. Like last season, the season before, as soon as we conceded, especially like the likes of City or Liverpool, I think, oh well, that's it then. We might potentially maybe get a draw or something, but if we can nick a goal, but I just didn't feel confident. However, in this game, as soon as we conceded, I thought, well, we're going to get some chances. We're going to score and we're going to pull it back. And that all initiates for me from the crowd, because as soon as we did concede and went back to centre circle, there was just a massive raucous roar from the crowd of Arsenal chants and we've got Super Mick Arteta, and that must really galvanise the boys to be able to pull the socks up and get straight back into it.
Massively, yeah. They didn't let that goal affect them, did they? And you could tell almost instantly they were pushing for that equaliser because they knew how big a comeback goal would be in the psychological element of the game. The next goal in that sequence is normally a key goal, isn't it? If you go 2-0 up, it's a big psychological battle to come from, and it was very important that we managed to get that equaliser. I think it was under 10 minutes later, wasn't it? So they really did pile on the pressure and made sure that was how it was going to go. And what a brilliant bit of play that was. The sustained pressure as well that we kept on that back four. Well, let's be honest, back 11. They sat deep, didn't they? They again, similar to Tottenham, we pushed them back. Ended up, was it forcing him into a corner? I've started to get a little, blockages in memory because of what such the magnitude of the game. But I'm pretty sure it was of a forced corner, worked back in through Zinchenko, dished out into Xhaka, who whips in an absolute lovely cross for Nketiah. He couldn't really miss, could he? It was a brilliant goal.
Yeah, you would be forgiven for blockages in memories when it comes to corners, because I think we did have about 87 during the game. So they all just kind of blend into one. But yeah, it comes back out to the left-hand side, and after a good bit of play from Martinelli, he pops it back. And it's played in, and it's pretty much put on a plate for Nketiah in the middle, isn't it? He makes a good run to get himself to the back stick, gets between two defenders, and great finish. And that's where we need our striker to be. And he absolutely was there. And he's picking up these positions so often now. And it's great that he has the instinct to be able to sniff it out and capitalise. And I'm so happy for Eddie, after he didn't score in the North London derby and having that great performance that he had. It made me so happy to see him score and equalise and get us. Because let's be honest, we after going 1-0 down, it can be a bit of a mountain to climb to then get back into the game. So that goal really gives us a foothold back into the game to be able to build on that and try and find a winner. Yeah,
absolutely massive. Another thing that I really liked about that goal as well is if you watch Eddie Nketiah on the replays, he knows that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is concentrating on the man in front of him. I can't remember which Arsenal player it is, but he's sort of focused on the man in front of him and sort of glancing over his shoulder to Nketiah every now and again. But he can't mark both, and Eddie fully capitalises that. The minute it goes in, he sort of drifts past Wan-Bissaka, who's just in no man's land. Essentially, he's got a free header. So it was really, really clever play from Eddie. So it's that fox in the box mentality, isn't it? It's something that really comes in clutch in these sort of games.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Eddie that I'm really starting to realise now, is the fact that he can score with his left foot, his right foot. He can score headers. He's got quick feet, and he's pretty fast as well. And he's got a bit of strength to him as well. So, and the know-how to be able to be in those positions. So he's literally got all of the tools to be able to be a top quality striker. It's just needing the game time and the opportunities. And that's what he's getting now, and he's getting the service and he's delivering. So I'm really happy for Eddie that he's starting to do it on the big stage with the first team for Arsenal. But so moving on a little bit, we in that first half, apart from those two big goal defence, it was kind of uneventful, wasn't it? There wasn't too many chances for either side, and if anything, I think we kind of performed quite poorly.
It was an electric start to the game, and to be fair, it was a very fast-paced first half, wasn't it? It was sort of, it was just quick, zippy passes from both teams, hard to break down for both teams, and it sort of nullified each other out in the end. But we did have a few notable... I mean, I hate to critique players, especially in big wins, but I think it's important to not just gloss over the fact that we had a few performers in the first half that weren't up to their normal standards. I would say most notably Ben White. He looked a little bit off it. A few sloppy passes resulted in big chances for United. Martinelli as well. I really would have thought with Trossard's arrival, and now with that competition for places out on the left, I thought that would maybe invigorate him. He seems to have that sort of character within him, that that South American bite to him that makes him want to fight for his place and things like that. But it seemed to almost inhibit him in a weird way. He wasn't as sharp as he normally was. His take-ons were mostly well defended, and obviously White got substituted off at half time. So it makes you think, was that in Arteta's mind as well, or was it down to the fact that he was on a booking and their main threat is Rashford, who's obviously very tricky, and another yellow card could have been highly likely, so he was maybe protecting him in that aspect. But part of me thinks it's maybe a little bit of both. What do you think with that one?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I initially, when I saw that he was substituted, I didn't actually realise that he was on a yellow until a chap that I was sat next to, who was also an Arsenal fan, was like, "Yeah, he was on a yellow there, wasn't he?" And I thought, Yeah, to be fair, Rashford was their biggest threat in that half, and if you do go down to 10 men, then it's pretty much guaranteed to be either a draw or a loss, isn't it? So I can understand why Arteta would have done it on that basis, but as you said, he didn't really perform too well either. So it was the right time to be able to bring on Tomiyasu and change it up a little bit. But yeah, Martinelli as well. He's not hitting the heights that he had previously hit over the last couple of months. I don't know if that's a bit of fatigue, maybe, or just come out of form when he's had really good form, or I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe it's since Nketiah's been in the team, he's not gelling as well compared to with Jesus. That could be a factor in it. And also with other players playing spectacularly well, he's not really needed to, so to speak. I mean, he always needs to, but it's not as important for him to have to make the difference when other players in the team are stepping up. So that could be a factor as well. But yeah, a bit of a disappointing half from both of those guys. But I'm sure that it won't be on their heads too much because they're both confident characters and they'll be back and they'll fight back.
Yeah, I mean, with Martinelli, it's one of those ones, isn't it, where I feel like it's a really good point what you mentioned with Gabriel Jesus. He really did have a really good connection with him, didn't he? And it was almost as if that now taking him out of the team, that connection's not quite the same with Nketiah. So that is actually a really good point and one that I never actually thought about. So yeah, that could also be part of it. But yeah, like you said, I'm confident that it's just not every player is going to have, top quality performances week in, week out. That's the beauty of this team, isn't it? We've got such a strong team that we don't have to have 11 players putting in 10 out of 10 performances. We've got enough strength to be able to win games and not carry, but to get us over the line with these performances from the other players.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do have some players that drop off in performance, then you have other players that can step in and make the difference in that game. And so that's pretty much what happened today, really, wasn't it? Later on, but we'll chat about that afterwards. So starting the second half, where we actually ended up taking the lead through an absolutely spectacular finish from Bukayo Saka. You see with defenders now, they don't want to make a challenge on him. They want to they're there just waiting to see what Saka's going to do, because they don't want to lunge in because they might give away a penalty. They don't want to try and show him down the outside because then he'll cut in and use his left foot. So it's almost like they just do not know how to act or react when Saka's running at them. And it was the same in this goal that he scored. The defender's there and he's on his toes looking at him, and then he just shifts it onto his left and bends it into the bottom corner, and it was an absolutely thunderous strike. I'd say either as good or better than Rashford's goal in the first half. But yeah, it came at a great time as well after half time to be able to put us into the lead.
Yeah, whatever Rashford can do, Saka can do better. And did you like how he went and celebrated the exact same corner with the exact same celebration? Did you notice that?
I enjoyed that. Yeah,
that was cheeky, I thought, because that was very confident of Rashford to do that. I thought, that was risky, being such an early goal, and the fact that Saka could come back and just give him a little bit of stick. I mean, I'm sure they're good friends off the pitch, but that was nice to see. But yeah, what an absolute finish, and he's just getting better and better, isn't he? What a performance from him. I can't believe the actual potential that this player's got. He's got so much more room to improve, but he's already probably the best winger. In fact, he's got to be up there as one of the best performing wingers in the league right now. I can't think of many better. The directness he has, it's just You can't compare it to anybody else. Salah was doing it, for the last few seasons, but that's dropped off massively. He's honestly, it's and like you say, such a crucial time as well, because it really enabled us to get a foothold back into the game. But they did try and come back, didn't they? After that goal went in, I noticed they were pressing us again into trying to force us into mistakes.
Yeah. I was just going to say as well, actually, on that goal, I was round at my girlfriend's mum's house. We had some Sunday dinner and things like that. And her partner's actually a Manchester United fan. And in the first half, when they scored and went ahead, he had this little confetti cannon thing. And he fired it on me after they scored. And I thought, okay, right, I'm going to remember that. And he had a few more lying around. And so we equalised, and then we went ahead. So I said to my girlfriend, I said, Paige, go and get the confetti cannon. It's on our Twitter at Arsenal Ramble _. There's a video of her, and she fires the confetti cannon onto him, and I zoomed into his face and his dismay.
Why have you got so many confetti cannons lying about? What's that all about?
It's a bit weird, really, isn't it? I don't know what his obsession is, but it came in handy in that moment. But we did. After that goal, unfortunately, I thought we would then just settle the game down and try and play Man United off the park. But unfortunately, United started to put pressure back on us again, and and they were getting corners and getting free kicks, and unfortunately, from a corner, the smallest man on the pitch, Martinez, manages to get a header in the middle of the box and score through, I think. Would you say it's a mistake from Ramsdale? It's a bit flappy, isn't it?
Yeah, he's come for it, flapped at it, not really got enough power on the. I was going to say punch, but it's not really a punch, is it? It's just sort of a
waft.
Palm. Whatever it wasn't a punch, and it fell right into the path of Martinez. The one player you don't really want to score against you as well. Like he's the player we tried to sign in Martinez. Especially with him being one of the smallest players on the pitch, like you just said, for him to score a header. But it wasn't exactly a bullet header. It was just a really awkward, lofted, loopy header, which Gabriel, to be fair to him, almost managed to clear. But, if the game would have ended 2-2 and that was the goal that they scored to stop us from winning, that would have been very, very frustrating, wouldn't it? It was such an avoidable goal. But to be fair, actually, 5 minutes before that goal went in, Rashford was put through after a Tomiyasu mistake out on the right. He mistimes his footing, and Rashford capitalises, and Ramsdale makes an absolutely amazing save with his feet yet again, like he did in the Spurs game. So you'd like to think it evens itself out a little bit.
He's not going to save it all, is he? He's not going to be without mistakes, and what we've got him in the team for is to have elite level distribution, have the confidence behind the back four, and to be able to make big stops and big moments. And he does do that a lot of the time, but unfortunately, it's the curse of being a goalkeeper. If you do make a mistake, then usually it ends up in a goal. Whereas, say, if you're a midfielder or a centre-back, if you slip up or if you miskick it or something, you've always got a chance to recover. But that's the only problem when you are a goalkeeper. There's always the chance that someone's going to score from a goalkeeping error. But, as you say, I think that's the only way that Martinez can actually score that goal. Because it's dropping towards the floor and he just kind of lofts it over, doesn't he? And it nestles into the back of the net. But if he actually had a clean contact on it, it would have got stopped by all the Arsenal players that are around it. But after he scores and he legs it to the corner flag and he's celebrating, going mad, I'm thinking, we've been pegged back twice now in this game. We've been pegged back once because we went into the lead. But it just started to feel like it wasn't going to be our day and we weren't going to have the 3 points that we desired to get against Manchester United. But that being said, the game was starting to drift away from us a little bit after that, wasn't it? But
massively, yeah.
We made a little change, a little Belgian change, so to speak. Trossard made his debut for Arsenal and got his minutes on the pitch, and he came on when Martinelli was starting to flag a little bit. I think he'd run out of steam from the first half, and we needed something to change the game, and this is what we've been crying out for. We've been crying out to be able to have an injection of attacking threat, and we did certainly get that in Trossard. And in the third goal for Arsenal, he was very important in the build-up. He gets the ball, he spins, he starts attacking in the final thirds, and then plays it out to Zinchenko, who then drills the ball back into the box. And after a bit of fortune and pinball, it then spills out to Nketiah, who just backheels it in.
Yeah, it was like a little deflection off Odegaard, I think it was. And he just sort of stabs it home with his foot, doesn't he? The emotion as well on Zinchenko's face when that goal went in.
Oh yeah,
absolutely glorious. What a warrior that player is. Absolute
he's a winner.
Winner, yeah. But going back to Trossard, yeah. I mean, if you think back to the Chelsea game this weekend where Mudryk came on, and the whole fan base on Twitter seemed to go into meltdown of how amazing this player looks after this little 45-minute cameo or whatever it was. Well, did he actually contribute anything? In fact, no, he missed a few good opportunities, actually. Circle back to Trossard's performance in this game. He's had a key involvement in the winning goal against Manchester United to get us 3 key points. So I hope Arsenal fans see that and really get behind this player, because he had a brilliant cameo. It wasn't as many minutes as I was hoping. I was hoping for him to come on a little bit earlier, actually. I think like many others were. But the impact that he made, even when we actually went up 3-2, he was doing some really, really clever work out on the left to retain possession and to take it into the corner and to frustrate them, essentially, to guarantee those 3 points. So very, very impressed with that as a debut off the bench.
Yeah, and the thing is, what Trossard did, it was simple but effective, and that's exactly what you want. You want to have a player who can get the ball, he's got good feet, he's direct, he can run at defenders, draw them in, and then he pops it off to Zinchenko, and then we've got a chance created. And as you say, Mudryk, he does look like a good player, looks like a great player potentially, but with all of the pretty dancing feet and going around the box, he didn't actually create anything. So it just shows you that sometimes simple football is the best football, and I'm glad that we've got Trossard in the team for that. But I think also for me, what was a key turning point in that last 25 minutes or so where we were trying to find the winner was Man United actually made a substitution, and they took Anthony off and brought on Fred. Now, I think they thought that maybe if they could shore up the defence, they might have been able to grind out a 2-2 draw, and that would have been a good point for them away from home at the Emirates. But from my perspective, as soon as they brought off Anthony and they brought on Fred, they became really negative because there was no chance that they could then counter us. There was no threat for us on the counter. And we just then flooded all of our players forward, and we just had sustained pressure on their goal for the last 20-25 minutes. It was literally like a training match for the last 25 minutes of chance after chance after chance, and us banging on the door to try and knock it down. So I think that was a key turning point, along with Trossard coming on for Martinelli.
That last 20-25 minutes was massive, wasn't it? Yeah, like you say, that substitution was naive from Ten Hag, and before the game there was such a big build-up on how it's to the best tactical up-and-coming managers, if you will, in the Premier League, and how the old United-Arsenal rivalry seems to be reignited with these two brilliant managers. But that was like you say, that was a bit of a silly one to make, to allow us to pin you down with 20-25 minutes on the clock plus injury time is, that is naive. and thankfully we was able to capitalise. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would even say so that substitution itself was probably pivotal in the goal for us, because when Anthony was further up the pitch, he was pinning Zinchenko back. And if you see the position that Zinchenko took for that goal, he was all the way on the left wing position to be able to put the cross in, which then subsequently we scored from. Now, because they didn't have that out ball to be able to have a threat on the counter, then he was given all the license in the world to be able to be there. So, you know, it's these little tactical decisions which sometimes can win or lose your games. And I think today we got it right and we won the game, and Ten Hag got it wrong and lost. But that's how fine the margins are of football, though.
I've got a little Opta stat for you as well. There was 63 touches in the Manchester United box in this match, which no side have had as many in a Premier League game this whole entire season. And I've not got the stat for this, but I would imagine that the majority of those touches came in those last 20-25 minutes, because we really did, pen them back. So yeah, it was a key moment in this game, and thankfully we were able to capitalise. Yeah,
and it's nice to know as well that we, after winning the game, we were deserved winners as well. Even I think Luke Shaw came out in a post-match interview and said that Arsenal were probably the better team today, and but for maybe if they had scored a few more chances or whatever, it might have been different. But he did say that after all the sustained pressure and the second half, Man United didn't look anywhere near as good as Arsenal in the first half. We looked like the better team, and we were the better team, and we're the team that's top of the league, and rightly so. And we now sit 5 points clear of Man City with a game in hand at the top of the Premier League, and 11 points clear of Man United, who, but for a few days ago, were mounting this title charge. So it just shows you how quickly things can change in the Premier League, and how it's nice that if we just focus on ourselves and win all of our games, or at least try not to lose them, like the Newcastle game, then other teams are going to fall apart in different games. And we're really doing well focusing on ourselves right now, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, like you say, it was frustratingly closer, the game, than it should have been, I think. All the pundits, and let's be honest, the majority of those pundits on that Sky team were United bias. I think you had Roy Keane. Yeah, you had Roy Keane, you had Gary Neville, you had Jamie Redknapp, an ex-Spud, you had Cesc Fabregas, which, I know he's ex-Arsenal and he's our man, but a bit snaky as well. So, there wasn't too many pundits there that I was expecting much praise from, but they were full of praise at full time. Not one of them were saying that Man United deserved anything from this game. They were all saying how Arsenal have cemented their title charge now. They're clear favourites for the league, bookies' favourites for the league. They're not just flash in the pan, a bit lucky here and there. This is serious Arsenal now. And I think they all could agree that it was closer than it should have been. If it wasn't for maybe the Ramsdale error. And the wonder goal from, I know it's easy to say this, the wonder goal from Rashford, then, Arsenal would have had a much easier ride, but this is football at the end of the day. Anything can change. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't think the referees made too many errors today, actually. I thought the referee had a pretty good game, so it's worth shouting that out. But the only thing really I thought that was kind of ludicrous, and as you pointed out, Gary Neville, who was on the commentary, made a big hoo-ha about this, was the Mikel Arteta getting a yellow card in the first half. Now, I thought this was absolutely crazy, because on the commentary, Gary Neville made it out that Mikel Arteta ran all the way down the touchline. He was effing and blinding and giving the ref loads of stick. But in reality, when they showed the replay, he literally walked the length of his box, and he basically held his fingers up to say 3 or 4 times that they've made this challenge on Saka and they've not given a yellow card. And then Anthony Taylor comes around and gives Mikel Arteta a yellow card. Now, is that not just normal for a manager to be saying those things, to be pointing that out to referee? Why is that a yellow card worthy?
I don't know, like the FA penalising us for going around the ref in the Oxford game. We just seem to be penalised for these ludicrous things that happen in every single football game. Like, I'm not being funny. That's what managers do. It's the passion. And if you go back and rewatch that clip, you can actually hear Richard Keys self-combusting with rage. No, sorry, with excitement, I should say, with that yellow card. We all know his hatred for Arteta. It's cringy. That guy really boils my blood for some reason. But anyway, it's just ludicrous. I can't get my head around it. I actually thought it was a yellow card for Shaw at first.
Yeah, so did I. I genuinely thought, I was like, yeah, to be fair, that looks like a yellow card challenge. So you got the yellow card out and it goes to Arteta. I was like, what? And then upon reflection, in the last few seasons, especially when Liverpool were challenging for the title, you'd see Jurgen Klopp running up to the other manager, he'd be shouting, he'd be knee sliding when they score outside of his technical area. He'd be giving all sorts of abuse to players and overstepping the mark all the time. And he never really, I think maybe once he got a red card, but apart from that, he never got cautioned or anything. I thought it was absolutely crazy how it seems like there's this kind of PGMOL agenda against Arsenal. Luckily today there wasn't any VAR decisions that went against us. There was the potential offside, which it looked like to me that they were trying to find any kind of like nook or cranny, or maybe Nketiah's boot had come off his foot so that he could have potentially been offside. It looked like they were looking for anything to try and rule that goal off. But when you see it, literally straight away, it takes less than 2 seconds to see he's about a yard onside. There's no need to take longer than that. But they're checking every single angle just to make sure. I was like, what? You can tell straight away that that's onside.
Yeah, I think Eddie's was clearly onside. It was the Zinchenko one which had me worried for a little split second. I was a little bit squeaky bum time with that one. I was thinking, is this not going to be our day? Especially, in the first game at Old Trafford in the season when Martinelli had that goal disallowed as well, wrongly, that I was thinking, oh, is it going to happen again? Thankfully not. But while we're on the discussion of bookings and whatnot, I think it's good to bring up the fact that a few of our players have avoided those fifth yellow cards at this point in the season. I think it was Saliba, Gabriel and Saka that were all nursing 4 yellow cards. So if they got through today's game yellow card free, then it now not resets, but it goes to 10 yellow cards. So now they're all on 4 out of 10 essentially. So I think it's good that we've managed to avoid that, because losing any one of those players for a single game is pretty big, especially when we haven't got the strength in depth. But who knows? We could be getting reinforcements soon. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it was quite a long time ago that we had Saliba and Saka, I think it was. No, it was Saliba and Jesus, wasn't it? And then Saka afterwards on 4 yellow cards. And it's actually quite outstanding to see that they've gone about 10 games without getting a yellow card to not get banned. It's almost like after they'd racked those 4 yellow cards up so quickly, then it was almost inevitable that they were going to have a ban at some point and we're going to have to rotate. But yeah, they've really coped with it quite well to have not got an extra yellow card, and it's great that we've got through this whole period without getting anyone having a suspension, really. And especially thinking about how massive Casemiro has been for Man United this season, and how he didn't play a part today. And I think he could. I think we were largely the better team, but I think he could potentially have made it a much more difficult game for us. So that just shows you how important it is to be able to have all of your first 11 on the pitch. And for example, if we were to lose Partey, we would really struggle. Saliba, we've got Rob Holding, but he's nowhere near as good as Saliba, in my opinion. He can fill in, as defending the box in the last 20 minutes, but he's not a starter really for me. So yeah, it's really important that we've got through this. So we're now into the second half of the season. We've got a great points tally, and then, as you say, it's pretty much refreshed because it's another 5 yellow cards before they can get. Well, in fact, it's more than refreshing because they can now get 6, can't they? Because they've only got 4.
Essentially, yeah, and psychologically as well, you don't want that thought in the back of your head, if I get a yellow, I'm going to miss the next game. No one wants that in the back of their mind as they're playing. It could affect them psychologically in these games. So, yeah, it's really good that we've managed to avoid this. It's strange, isn't it? Because I remember pre-World Cup, we were talking about maybe it might be worthwhile one of our players getting a purposeful booking, just so they missed a less important game. But that, it just obviously wasn't ever needed in the end. So it's good stuff.
I wonder what the odds are for Saka, Saliba, and who was the other one?
Gabriel.
Saka, Saliba, and Gabriel all get a yellow card in the next game. I bet it's pretty low, to be fair, because I bet they're all like, right, that's it.
Let's go. Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk to you about as well was the fact that one of our impending signings, Jakob Kiwior, I think that's how you pronounce his name, sorry. Polish international, left-sided, left-footed centre-back. He was sat in the director's area. So he looks like he's going to be the next recruitment signing for this January. What were your thoughts on him? Have you had much chance to look into him?
Well, firstly, I'm glad it was you that tried to pronounce his name, because I would not even know where to start. I'm sure after I hear it on commentary a few times, I'll be able to pick it up. To be honest, I've not really seen much of him at all. He's come from Spezia, isn't it?
Yeah, in Italy, yeah.
In Italy. He's come from Spezia. And I think our scouting team seems to do really well with finding these little hidden gems in the Italian league, like Tomiyasu, for example. So, yeah, I trust in our recruitment after all the signings that we've made in the last couple of seasons. So, hopefully, when he steps in, he can perform well. I think he's a left centre back, isn't he? So,
yeah,
he'll be able to cover for Gabriel if he does end up getting 6 yellow cards in the next 6 games. If he does really let his hair down and get a few yellow cards. But yeah, I think he's going to be imperative in the Europa League games coming up, and in the FA Cup as well. I think he probably will make a feature in those. And yeah, it's always good to have some extra cover, and if he's of a decent quality, then why not?
And left-sided, left-footed centre-backs, that was a mouthful, are actually gold dust as well, aren't they? There's not many of them, which is what makes Gabriel so valuable to us, because he's already one of the best in the league and left-footed. So the fact that we've got or able to identify somebody that can deputise for him. And another important note is Gabriel's only missed 1 game all season. So that's a lot of games, isn't it? We need to start rotating, keeping him fresh, because if he were to be injured, that is a big loss to our starting 11. So I think it's one of those problems that Arsenal fans might not necessarily have realised we had, because of the fact that Gabriel's been there and he's been fit all season. But we'd have noticed it a hell of a lot more had he got an injury. So I think it's clever recruitment. And I think if I'm right in thinking that this has all been sped up because of the fact that Mudryk money has become available, i.e. the fact that we've not gone for him and have decided to bring forward some of these signings, it's really, really wise, I think. I think the strength in depth from a number of players provides a lot more. It boosts our chances of this title run, I think. One player in Mudryk, it would have been great to have someone of his quality and someone with his potential, but to add Trossard and to add a new centre back to help cover for Gabriel, and who knows, maybe even more with that money. I think that's really, really wise.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that you made about Gabriel as well. The fact that there actually isn't any like-for-like cover in our whole squad to be able to go into the left centre-back role that's left-footed. And I think every other position that we've got, we've at least got somebody that can step into that role and perform, but we really don't have anyone else to perform, to step into his role. So, yeah, I didn't actually think about that before, but it is imperative that we've got someone in there as cover. And, I'm glad that... I think the trade-off for me for not getting Mudryk is getting, three or four decent signings in for the same sort of price as Mudryk would have cost. So I think we weren't really desperate for a first-team winger, were we? We were desperate for someone to be able to fill in, cover, and come off the bench, maybe like Trossard. But yeah, we weren't really desperate for that first team. Hang on 1 second. My laptop's about to die, so cue the
no problem.
Pause.
I'll keep going while you're off, but thinking about the fact that we've also been heavily linked with Rice as well, also makes me think that by saving these fees, not fees, but by saving this pot of money and keeping that available for the summertime, we're going to be able to reinvest that in someone like Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice is obviously of a well, let's be honest, he's at a level that's high enough to really, really improve our team, and it's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. So maybe by not signing Mudryk, investing in these young, promising players now, and then in the summer going big for someone like Rice is going to be a smart move. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And they say that it's always best to go big in the summer and not in January, because they know that January is where teams are starting to panic a little bit and they're more likely to overpay. And Chelsea definitely did overpay for Mudryk. Like, let's not even lie about it. He's not even worth anywhere near that amount of money. So, if you're going to make a big investment, do it in the summer when you know that the player's going to be available and there's not going to be as much competition to try and get that player. And it seems like we've got an open road to be able to get Declan Rice now. I think there's maybe us and maybe Manchester United might try and get him because they've been trying to tease him to go to Old Trafford for the last few seasons. But I think with the position that we're in now, we're going to be so much more of an attractive prospect to a young, decent player. You'll be looking at the league, you'll be thinking, Arsenal, say if we did win the title, they're title champions, they're in the Champions League, they've got a young squad, a great manager. What player wouldn't want to come to Arsenal right now?
Especially when the position that he plays in, they're probably our two most senior aging players that we need to start thinking about replacements. We don't want to do a Liverpool and replace them too late, because we've seen how that happens with Mane and Van Dijk, and even with their midfield as well. It's just with Henderson aging and that they've not really properly been able to replace him, and I think they missed out on the boat with going in earlier for players. They got lucky with some like Jota and players like that, but I think we need to learn from that mistake and bed players into the team earlier than you probably imagine. The only caveat to this is that sometimes that can, it can piss off players at the end of the day. Imagine if Xhaka, if we bring in Rice and then Rice plays in Xhaka's role or plays in Partey's role, they're not going to be particularly happy about that, are they? But ultimately, we have to put Arsenal first, and get these world class players, because for me, for his age profile, the fact that he's English homegrown, the fact that he can play in that 8, but he can also play in the 6. He'd be perfect. He'd be absolutely perfect for us. And some of the quotes that he's coming out with in these reputable articles from journalists is that a move to Arsenal is something that is a great appeal to him.
Yeah.
So
well, that's something that you notice with great teams that have won consistent titles over an extended period of time. For example, the team that we beat today, Man United, when they were winning title after title, every season Sir Alex Ferguson would buy another player, and people would be like, but we don't need another player, we've just won the title. We're like, well, we don't need to freshen it up, do we? And he would be like, well, no, we need to get somebody else in, because you need to have that competition for places. You need to keep the squad on their toes to know that none of their positions are safe if they're not performing well. And that's football, essentially, because you're going to have aging players. You're going to have players that go in and out of form, and you need to have options. So I think Declan Rice, although his price I think is a little bit inflated, but obviously you say the English and he's young, etc., and he's played in the Premier League already. I think his price is a little bit high, but he would be a great player. And if he wants to come to Arsenal, although we've seen that with Mudryk, that players that want to come to Arsenal don't always come to Arsenal. If he does end up coming to the Emirates, then I'll be really happy to have him in the team. And to be fair, we've been quite lucky, touch wood, that Partey's not been injured this season. But that's something we've really struggled with over the last couple of seasons, and probably why we didn't actually end up finishing in the Champions League spots last season. The fact that Partey had some time out. So to be able to have someone like Rice who can step in, or play instead of Xhaka maybe, and keep Partey on his toes in terms of competition, it can only be a good thing for the team.
Yeah, massively. There's a few more links as well that we've had this week. Quite reputable as well, so I wouldn't just take them with a pinch of salt. They do seem to be a bit more meaty than that. But essentially, there's a young right back, Fresneda. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's 18 years old, I think, maybe just turned 18. He plays as like an inverted right back, so similar to how Ben White plays. He used to be a central midfield player. He's quite tall. Not tall as in centre-back tall, but taller for a full-back. Yeah. Looks really promising. I think there's quite a few clubs sniffing around him, Newcastle being another. Yeah. With the reports of Cedric Suarez maybe going to Fulham, this one makes a lot of sense, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's one in, one out, isn't it? It makes sense if you're going to get rid of a member of the squad in a certain position to bring somebody in, or maybe promote someone from the youth squad. The only thing that I would say on that is we've got Brooke Norton-Cuffy, who was actually playing for Lincoln last season on loan, and he looks like a real prospect. So it's a bit of a shame that we're not promoting him and maybe going into the because if who we're supposedly linked with, he's 18 himself. It's not like he's got more experience than one of our homegrown youth players. So it would have been nice to have seen him get promoted into the first team. But yeah, I'm always happy to see new arrivals, and especially if they've got decent potential.
Yeah, it's a tough one though, isn't it, with academy players, because you could say the same thing with Balogun, who's on loan at Reims in France. I can't ever pronounce that team's name. And he's absolutely firing. I think it's 11 in 19 games goals wise. So he's one of the French league's top scorers. So when he comes back in the summer, it's going to be a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? But this is a good conundrum to have, because we either embed them into the team, or we sell them on for a decent profit and invest it into the team where it better needs reinforcement. Because let's be honest, a number 9 is not really what we need right now. We've got Jesus, we've got Nketiah, we've got Trossard that can play in 9. So it's going to be a tough decision to make, but like I say, a good position to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And as you're saying about the young right back as well, who's coming in, there's a good chance that he's probably going to go on a loan spell as well when he comes in, just to get that experience in the English league. So that could happen. And then, as you're saying about Balogun, he didn't really perform too well for us when he played for us. So I still think, even though he's had this loan spell, I still think he could do with maybe one more loan spell and then come back to Arsenal, then make his decision. Because even Nketiah, like, look at how well he's doing now. He's since he came into the team on Boxing Day, how many has he scored now? Is it 6?
6 in... It's definitely 6 in maybe 7 games, 6 or 7 games.
Well, and that's in the Premier League, and they're not against... You're not talking against like Nottingham Forest. This is against Man United, big teams like that. And I think for a striker, it does take longer for them to learn their craft, especially in the English leagues. So I would give Balogun maybe one more season on loan, and then we would decide. But yeah, it will be a very, very tough decision to make. But I think we're getting to about the hour mark now. Is there anything else you want to talk about from today's game at all? Or
I don't think there is, to be fair. I think we've covered most things, to be honest.
Okay, well, we're going to be back just after the game against Manchester City in the FA Cup, in the fourth round of the FA Cup. That's going to be a really tasty game, isn't it? Do you think? How do you think that's going to go?
I'm not sure, to be fair. I've managed to get tickets to the game as well. Although I'm in the home section, I'm going to masquerade as a home fan. I'm going to, stick my coat on and hide the top. But I couldn't manage to get an away ticket, so it's sort of the only way to see the Arsenal. So I think we are going to heavily rotate. To be fair, well, not heavily. I should retract that slightly. I think we will rotate. I think it's a game that's got Smith Rowe written all over it. It's maybe a good game to integrate him back into some match fitness. Trossard as well. I guess they're in the same position out on the left, so that will be interesting to see where each of them play. Vieira, I think, will come in. I think he needs to start getting some consistent minutes. I think now with a couple of these new signings, we should see a bit more strength in depth, so rotating won't be such an issue. What do you think? Do you think we'll go really, really strong because it's City, or do you think we might sort of rotate?
Well, for me personally, just because I've got a bet on Arsenal to win the Premier League and the FA Cup as a combined, I would like him to play our absolute first team. But from a sensible point of view, I do think we will rotate, but I don't think it'll be wise to heavily rotate. For example, if we do end up playing both Smith Rowe and Trossard and Vieira, these are 3 guys which haven't really played much together at all, and it could be detrimental to us to have a heavy loss really to City, like from a psychological aspect. I know it's not in the league, but for them to have that one up on us already to then go into the Prem games as well, it is another competition at the end of the day that you want to be winning and progressing far in. So I would rotate, but I wouldn't rotate too much. For example, I'd probably change either one of Saka or Martinelli. Probably Saka I would change and put in Trossard, just because he's 2-footed and he can play off either wing, and give Martinelli that extra little game to maybe try and play in some form, just because I feel like Saka's been so effective for us in the league, and I feel like he's going to be more useful in the Premier League. So to give him a bit of a break and bring in Trossard, and just give Martinelli that game to be able to run at Rico Lewis or whoever they've got on the right back for that game. I'd also change Odegaard. I'd bring in Vieira, and then I'd like to see a start for our new left centre back as well. But then apart from that, I would have pretty much everyone. I think I'd maybe change White for Tomiyasu as well.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that makes sense. And it's Arteta at the end of the day. We know he doesn't like to massively rotate in the FA Cup. It's a cup that means a lot to Arsenal. It's not like the Carabao where it's a bit of the throwaway essentially. We've won it the most times of any team, so we take it seriously, and that probably will be reflected in the team sheet. But you know, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
And to be fair, also just saying about City, if for them a rotation isn't a rotation, if you get me, they can rotate 11 players and still have a title winning squad, so to speak. So I think it would be dangerous for us to rotate too heavily in that game, because you know, you're just pretty much gifting them the game, aren't you? So I think we'll go semi-strong, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see, and that'll be on the 27th. But I think if you're going to the game, then we probably won't be doing a podcast straight after, but more than likely the day after, won't we?
Yeah, probably on the Saturday at some point. We'll hopefully get that one out there for you guys.
Okay, so that's going to be everything from today, and we will see you after that podcast. We will see you after that match against Manchester City on the 27th. See you later, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and